My lesson today is about setting a personal intention to speak love more fluently. Last week I talked about how people show up in 4 distinct ways in our lives. You might remember that. To love and support you is one way. To need you is another way. To teach you and to test you are the 4 ways that I outlined last week. And it's our job to figure out how to be loving to each and every one of the people who show up and cross our path. So I want to dive into that today. First of all, I always like to make you think a little bit. What do you think are the 5 most commonly spoken verbal languages in the world? Call them out. English is one. Spanish. Chinese. Hindi. And someone said it, French. Okay, those are the 5 most commonly spoken languages in the world. I looked it up, and if you could speak those 5 most common languages, you could communicate with approximately 60% of the world population. Guess what? Only 6% of the world speaks English. So I thought that would have been a higher number, right? I thought it would have been. But have you ever traveled internationally and you tried to speak English to someone who doesn't understand English and you find yourself speaking more slowly, or how about more loudly, to try to attempt to be understood? Or, you eventually get to drawing pictures or gesturing or whatever. And I know there's now tech that you can speak into the phone and then the phone can speak to them and we can bridge that gap. But technology is actually affecting our ability to be understood wherever we go. Well, guess what? Love is a language that we all are also learning to speak and understand. And since you know that it is our spiritual calling to be a fluent speaker of love, I thought I would share some information with our community today about speaking love. And actually, I've spent my ministerial life looking for wisdom and information about how to be more loving and more effective at loving others. And one of the most impactful bodies of wisdom on this subject that I have found is the work of Dr. Gary Chapman, who wrote about the 5 love languages. And how many of you are exposed to the 5 love languages? Oh, good. So most of you do understand it, or at least have some exposure to it, but I'm going to catch everybody up because I know that we're kind of familiar with it, but how does his work inform us as we make that spiritual commitment to love everybody? That was what Ernest Holmes we had on the screen last week, is love everybody. And if you haven't done that, start right there. Start doing that right now. So if we're making that commitment, wouldn't it be best if we had as much information about the tools that are available? So just like the spoken language, the more fluent we are in the languages of love, the more effective our communication can be with more of humanity. And as I said, if we could speak Mandarin Chinese, Hindi, Spanish, French, and English, and add those others to our basic understanding of English, our reach would be really pretty broad. We still are going to miss 40% of the world, but still we are going to have a bigger impact. And likewise, I believe that the more fluent we are in each of the 5 languages of love, your reach in your own life, your reach to make an impact could be more broad. The trick is knowing which language to speak and which one you are best at, right? So just like spoken language, you can't depend on outer appearance of another person to know which love language might work the best. You can't project your own preferred love language onto someone else and think that they're going to hear that you love them. And being multilingual in the languages of love is a very valuable skill set if your intention is to love everybody. So I want to review the 5 love languages and how they could be used with different kinds of people who show up for us. Because receiving and giving love is about creating this sharing love connection, just like speaking and listening to language is creating some sort of connection between you and the other person. It's like currency flowing back and forth. And as we go through these love languages, Think about how these different ways of being loved feel to you as you open yourself to receive love. And secondly, think about how well you use this love language to express love to others, how you give love, in other words. And sometimes, just like spoken language, we assume that the other person is going to understand the language we speak and feel the love that we're giving. And if we speak the love language a little bit more slowly and more loudly, they will surely understand that you are being loving. But if the other person isn't fluent in that particular love language, it's helpful if we can speak a few others to increase our chances of transmitting our love to as many people as possible. Here's the thing. Each of us give and receive love differently, and we have different preferences of how we like to express love to someone else and how we like to have love expressed to us. So I'll share more generalities in a minute, but let's dive into each one of them. The first love language I will go over is words of affirmation. So in a world that speaks this particular love language, actions don't always speak louder than words, and silence is deadly. So if words of affirmation is your strongest love language, words mean the world to you. And you likely offer lots of positive words to others. Hearing compliments and reassurances and other loving words can just like send your heart skyward, right? If it's your strongest love language, you're the kind of person that does not easily forget insults. They actually shatter you, so you're probably careful not to speak them either. On the other hand, if this isn't your love language and others are showing you love verbally, you might say things like, words are just words, or words are cheap. I need you to show me that you love me. Or flattery gets you nowhere, and your apology means nothing. Change your behavior. Words are not getting it. If you're hearing those kind of words spoken back to you too, it's likely that you're speaking words of affirmation as your love language and the other person's not hearing it, not being understood as love. And written and spoken words do matter. In spirituality, we teach that. We understand the power of words. And when it comes to being loving, you can always start with your positive words. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. But remember that being fluent in some other languages might increase the ability for you to feel loved. And if you're waiting for affirming words to come from another person before you accept that you're being loved, look around and see if there might be another language being spoken. So my encouragement to you is to get fluent in speaking affirming words to anyone who crosses your path. Practice giving your positive words generously. Every chance you get, give compliments, encouragement, expressions of verbal kindness. Whether the person has arrived to help you, or to teach you, or to test you, or to need you, words are going to help. And as your minister, I'm going to tell you that actually this is my number one love language, right? So I bet you're not surprised. Since I was a little girl, I've been using my words and my written words actually too, to connect with other people. And those who cross my path often get my words. And as I draw closer and people who use their words, I pull them in. And people who are careless with their words, I usually keep them at a bit of a distance. In Don Miguel Ruiz's seminal work, The Four Agreements, the first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. He writes, speak with integrity. Say only what you mean. Avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip about others. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. Don Miguel Ruiz. So if you're going to be known as a source of love, it starts with your word. Use the power of your word to be a channel of love. Words are kind of the foundation of love. Let's move to the second love language. Quality time is the second one. So in the vernacular of quality time, nothing says I love you like full, undivided attention. If this is a strong love language for you, just being there is how you give and receive love, but really being there. Like the TV's off, your phone's down, you're not phubbing anybody, your phone's down, you're paying attention. That's really a lot of love language right there. You feel truly special and loved. If this is how you receive love the best, your heart responds best to time spent in close connection with others. I have found this particular love language of quality time to be a very strong one for quiet and introverted people, right? Words may just not carry the same weight as being fully present, minimizing distractions, giving time and listening carefully to each other. My daughter's here this weekend. Some of y'all got to connect with her a little bit. I believe this is her strongest love language. She and I were talking in the car on the way up here. You know, I've often felt like the teacher in the Peanuts movies. Wah, wah, wah, wah, wah, wah, wah, wah, wah, wah. She can't hear me. She can't hear the words that I'm saying. I'm speaking too much. But I have learned how valuable it is for us to get away from other people and have time alone. Car rides are really important as we build a connection. But going to a museum or anything that we do just together, that's her love language. So it's about quality time. And we both feel loved, but it's especially important for her. Do you see how important it was as a mom for me to figure out what her love language is, right? My jabbering on was great for me, but it just often didn't feel like love to her. Going to spend the night on the floor of her dorm room, she felt loved, right? She felt loved. You know, here in community, we spent this summer figuring out about how important how we spend our time is, and how if we spend our time correctly, the energy comes back much, much sweeter. So spend quality time with those who are crossing your path to love you and to receive your love. Doing so increases your chances to being the presence of love in the lives of more people. To sum up this love language, here is what author Carl Christian Flores said. In a moving world filled with endless distractions, time is the most valuable currency. When someone gives you theirs, they cut a slice of their lifespan and serve it to you. In their brief existence, in their undeterminable episode of consciousness, you were chosen. Isn't that sweet? That's really important. How about a third love language? The third one is gifts. Now, don't mistake this love language for like materialism. The giver and the receiver of gifts thrive on sentimental feelings. If this is your love language, you're probably really sentimental and thoughtfulness, effort behind a gift. That's how you speak this love language. And if gift giving is going to be one of your love languages, even if it isn't your strongest one, if you want to get fluent at speaking this language, show others that you know them. Understand what is important to them with the gifts that you give. For a person who receives love best this way, it doesn't matter the monetary value of the gift. It matters that it was thoughtful. Love energy flows with whatever gifts we give. So here, I encourage you to honor birthdays and anniversaries and all those special days people have, but also look for ways to give gifts on just everyday level, right? Pay attention to the ways that you uniquely connect with the person that the gift is for. Maybe capture a memory or a special moment that you shared and have a gift that symbolizes that. Now, we know here in spirituality that gift giving, the flowing of giving and receiving, is just part of the divine nature of our love of all kinds. So being fluent in this love language is key to loving others. Gifts are symbols of energy of appreciation, and we have learned a lot about staying in the flow of what we want. Scottish author Robert Louis Stevenson, best known for The Jungle Book, I think is what he wrote. You can give without loving, but you can never love without giving. And this love language seems to be easier with those we're in close relationship with. But what if we started giving gifts to the world around us? You know, strangers are really interesting when strangers give us gifts. I was on a tour last year doing some traveling, And I was on a boat with a large group of people, and I started talking to this random man who happened to be standing at the rail with me, and we were watching boats and water and people and everything, and we're just kind of making small talk about how the world works and how, how we can be helpful to others and just whatever. And it seemed like just a trivial conversation. So I was shocked when he pulled out of his pocket this little medallion, and it said Champion Warrior on this medallion. And he gave it to me. He said he wanted me to have it. He went around the world giving these tokens to people he could tell cared about other people, that championed other people. I was shocked. It was a gift, but it was so perfect for that moment, and I will never forget it. Never forget it. Still sits on my altar. A second story about giving just generally to the world. My daughter and I were in Las Vegas, and she was about, I want to guess, about 7 years old. Not the best city to take a 7-year-old to. But she was watching all the people gambling and everything, and she's like, I want to play a game. So we found an arcade. And we went in the arcade, and it was one of those arcades that when you win or you score or whatever, it spits out tickets for you, right? So Kelsey had accumulated a small number of tickets, and then you take the tickets into the shop, and then you shop with your tickets for prizes, right? What you could buy with your tickets. And this woman just walked up to us, stranger, had a whole bunch of tickets, and she said, do you want these tickets, to Kelsey? And Kelsey looks at me like, can I have them? And it was just an act of just sheer generosity. She didn't want the tickets, and she saw this little girl, and Kelsey got to shop for bigger things. But that touched Kelsey. That touched me, actually, that this woman would just look for a moment to be generous in that moment. And so that's how we love the world, with that language. The bottom line is, be a gracious receiver of those things, but look for opportunities to give gifts to those who are close to you, but also to strangers. Because whatever love we flow out onto the web of life always returns to us. Never forget that. So our fourth love language is acts of service. One of the great spiritual teachers of our day is a woman named Carolyn Mace. And she writes of this love language when she said, there is no such thing as a simple act of compassion or an inconsequential act of service. Everything we do for another person has infinite consequences. Think about that. So can vacuuming the floors and washing the car really be an expression of love? Absolutely. But so can holding a door, or folding someone's laundry that's left in the dryer, or straightening out your hotel room before you check out so the housekeeper doesn't have so much to do, refilling someone else's empty glass. Anything you do to ease the burdens of responsibility of another person is a love language. And if this is one of your top love languages, the words you most want someone to say is, here, let me take that off your plate. Let me do that for you. You feel loved when one of your responsibilities suddenly evaporates, right? And we have learned this love language because we understand that laziness and broken commitments and making more work for others are very unloving ways to show up. The energy of God that flows in this love language is thoughtfulness, helpfulness, and actual physical energy. We speak this love language most fluently when we are reliable and helpful in our interactions with others in whatever relationship we may be in. We speak this love language with the world when we carry our own weight and we pick up the weight for others too. We also speak it when we appreciate the help we receive from others. We notice when someone has done more than their fair share, and we recognize them for doing it. It helps them know that the love they are extending is actually being received. Remember, giving love can best be felt when it is received, especially this particular kind of loving acts of service. So let's get to the final one. The final one is physical touch. So let me first say that this language isn't all about the bedroom. It really isn't. A person whose primary language is physical touch is not surprisingly touchy, right? Touchy. Hugs and pats on the back and holding hands and thoughtful touches on the arm. They can all be ways of expressing that care, that concern, love, also excitement to be in that person's presence. So if this is your top love language, my encouragement for you is to get very good at reading social cues, right? And understand the cultural norms around touch in the groups and the families that we encounter. Work to establish touch agreements in the relationships that you are in, and watch and listen for feedback from people that you don't know well. If it's not your love language, my encouragement for you is to get very good at your ability to communicate your preferences in a loving way and do whatever work is necessary to heal whatever emotional wounds keep you from wanting to be touched. Because touch is one of the 5 senses, and our bodies need touch. So just try to speak the language of touch as a love language. Being physically present and accessible is really important, obviously, but making sure the people in your life who rely on this love language get time in your presence where touch is possible. Those who have this as a primary love language are extremely harmed by neglect and abuse. It can be unforgivable. So if you're carrying around that, your love language might be touch and it wasn't cherished. So developing fluency of this particular love language involves healing aversions we may have built up throughout our lives to being touched so we can flow this energy better. Sometimes words are difficult, and a hug or a handshake or an arm around the shoulder can communicate so much. We're in our human bodies to experience the 5 senses, and one of them is touch. So the Turkish playwright Mehmet Murat İldan said, "Touching a flower is touching life. Touching the sun is touching life. Touching the skin, touching the sand. All of this means touching life. No touch, no life." So those are the 5 love languages that Chapman writes extensively about. And as I've kind of reviewed these 5 possible ways you could express love, perhaps you can see that being open to more different types of loving helps you connect with more people on your path. I invite you to dive into the work of Gary Chapman, actually, and see where you are fluent and where you could stand to deepen your ability to flow love. There are like free online tests, and you can figure out your love language. But I also want to point out that all 5 love languages represent ways we can show up in the world as a whole, as a loving spiritual being. We can purposefully speak love languages in the individual relationships we have, but we can also generalize them to the world. So I want to wrap up, and I want to say this. I want to say that we here in this community strive to speak and offer all languages of love when you come into this building. And I invite you to join me in this intention. Speak only affirming words to each other while you are here. Sit down and share some coffee and conversation with others and quality time together. Bring your gifts into community by sharing your food and tokens of your appreciation for the individuals that you interact with here. Volunteer and help a team leader accomplish their task. Greet each other with a hug or a handshake, but allow that touch, because when we practice love with each other, our love languages get stronger and stronger. And I actually know some folks around here who speak all 5 very fluently, so watch and learn. So what I know is that the more we practice loving everybody here, the more easily we can speak the languages of love wherever we go in the world and show up as love and acceptance and compassion and kindness with everyone we meet, even those who may be in emotional pain, which involves a lot of people right now in the world. So will you pray with me? Take a deep breath. And I invite you to feel that love that naturally bubbles up inside of you as your soul expresses. We are always connected to Source, and that Source is love. And the more we allow it to flow through us, the more fluently we speak love in our lives, the more we are on purpose and the more life affirms us. And so I give thanks. I give thanks for this opportunity to flow love in this place and to invite the flow of love from each and every person in this community. So with that gratitude, I let my word go. I know it is good. We affirm it together, and so it is.